record on this computer. All right. Hi, everyone. This is Caroline Fry with Colorado Common Cause and Jennifer Levin with Disability Law Colorado. We are a part of Just Vote Colorado Election Protection, which is a voting rights and election coalition formed in 2004. We are the largest nonpartisan election protection in the state of Colorado, and we assist thousands of voters every year with helping them vote and register to vote. So thank you so much for serving as an election protection volunteer with us this year. And thank you for signing up specifically to serve as a voter service and polling center surveyor. So what you're doing in this role, I don't know if you've heard of secret shoppers that they have for businesses, but essentially you're serving as a secret shopper for our polling places in Colorado. So Colorado has one of the best election systems in the country. We have many different ways that people can register to vote and cast a ballot. And we just want to make sure that especially our polling places are up to snuff and that the scripts that election judges should read are being read properly, that the voter service and polling centers are located in good areas where people don't have to drive hours and hours to find them, that they're accessible to folks with disabilities. So it's very important that you're doing this work. Thank you so much for serving as a volunteer. With that, I'm going to share my screen so you can see the actual survey. Okay, hopefully you can now see. There we go. All right, great. So first of all, when you're doing this, when you're serving as a voter service and polling center surveyor, you should know that you're not just going to a voter service and polling center after you voted to just go in and look around and do this survey. This is specifically to be done while you are voting. In Colorado, there were laws about who can be in a voter service and polling center, which makes sense for us to have these laws because we don't want random people just coming in and walking around and possibly causing confusion and voter intimidation. So it's really important for you to print out this survey if possible, take it with you to a voter service and polling center, and then you can be filling it out as you're going through the process. And then later, when you get back to your computer, you can go through and input the information that you've taken during the survey. So with that being said, just to run you through a couple of different deadlines. So right now, when we are recording this webinar, it is Monday, October 15th, which is the first date that ballots are going to be mailed to all registered voters in Colorado. However, folks have up until Election Day, which is Tuesday, November 6th, to either register to vote for the first time, update their voter registration, or cast a ballot. As I said, Colorado's election system is one of the best, if not the best in the country, and we have made it very accessible to a variety of Coloradans and their schedules. Fantastic. Voter service and polling centers, just to back up, are a place that is essentially a one-stop shop for all things voting in Colorado. So I can go if I just got married and to update my last name. If I recently moved, I'll go to the new county in Colorado that I moved to, go to any voter service and polling center in the county, and I can update my voter registration. If I am a first voter, if I just turned 18 and I want to vote for the first time, I can go to a voter service and polling center. So there will be a live human being at the voter service and polling center who will help you out with whatever you need. They'll get you a replacement ballot if your dog ate your ballot or if you just lost it. And then, very importantly, you can vote on a machine. Commonly unknown fact about Colorado is that it's not just a mail ballot state, so you have the option, any of us have the option to go in and vote on a machine at a voter service center. So as I said, many different options for Coloradans. So voter service and polling centers open on Monday, October 22nd. So that's the first date that you will be able to go in and fill out your ballot, vote on a machine, and complete the survey. So as you'll see, when you go to the website, you can easily pull this survey off as a PDF that you can print. And I can also, we'll also email this PDF out to all of you along with a copy of this recording, which will be going on to YouTube. So this is how the survey looks. We'll first get to basic information from you about who you are, where you live, and what voter service and polling center location you're going to. You can easily find your voter service and polling center by going to justvotecolorado.org, scrolling down a little bit, and using our lovely map to find your closest voter service and polling center. So I'm going to put in our Common Cause address here in Denver. So pins will drop, and you'll see all the voter service and polling centers in your county. And then I'm going to put Grant Street, Denver, Colorado. Click search. And then if you scroll down, you'll see all of the different voter service and polling centers with the ones closest to me being up front. So my closest is pretty much just across the street, Denver Elections Division on 14th Ave. And you can see that they are open the week of October 22nd, Monday through Friday, 8 until 6. So you can use that website. You can also find a lot of different answers to frequently asked voter questions, an overview of Colorado voting law, etc. So it's a great website in your back pocket. You'll also see the date and time that you participated in the survey. So the first section is actually getting to the voter service and polling center. So we're basically trying to make sure that voter service and polling centers are in good places in our county. So they're accessible to folks who don't have a car. They're accessible to folks with disabilities. So you'll say how you got to the voter service and polling center, making sure if it's accessible by public transit. You'll estimate your travel time to the voter service and polling center and give us that. And then you want to make sure that, when you're on the street, that it's clearly marked out as a voter service and polling center, so folks know that that's where they need to go. Also, just check to make sure there's accessible parking and record that if there's not. And then the entrance is the second piece. So walking up, just stop and look around. Does the voter service and polling center have steps to get in the building? If so, is there a ramp available? Is there a curb cut from the parking lot to a sidewalk or ramp that leads to the front entrance? And then
and I was going to mention on the accessible parking, it should be near an accessible entrance as well. So you want to look and make sure the parking spot isn't like on the other side of the building and somebody would have to get and walk around, or in their mobility device go around the entire building to get there. If there's an accessible entryway, that parking space should be nearby. And one of the issues that we've seen in the past with the parking spaces is people will be parked in them that shouldn't be. Particularly some election judges have chosen to do that. I don't know why. Maybe they feel like because of their job they can do that. So just be on the lookout for cars that look like they shouldn't be in the spaces. Cars have to have a placard that has the universal symbol for an accessible parking. So look for that. And yeah. So I'm going to go ahead. I guess I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
We're in the accessible part, and I'm just going to do the, focus on that. So we were talking about ramps and then curb cuts, which it's not a ramp, but a curb cut would be something you would look for coming from the parking space up onto the sidewalk, particularly near the accessible space. You want to make sure that it's convenient. And I'm not going to go into all the ADA standards because there are some detailed standards, like as far as slope standards, width standards, that sort of thing. Too much to take on. Just common sense. You want to look for, is it going to be something a person could easily move, a mobility device like a wheelchair or a scooter scooter into and up. And if there is a ramp, you want to make sure it's free of obstacles all the way to the front door, such as hanging tree limbs, uneven path, or trash cans. This is particularly for someone who is using a mobility device and needs to get through, and possibly somebody who is low vision or is blind. That person wouldn't know if there was going to be something hanging down, and they may not be able to see that. So you want to make sure any obstruction is clear so that people don't get injured or caught up in something that makes it difficult to get to the election process. So is the accessible entryway clearly marked? Pretty self-explanatory. Just making sure there's usually that universal symbol with the person in the wheelchair that tells you it's accessible. Is there an automatic door opener, a call button, so that if there isn't a door that you can open easily, there should be someone available to come and assist that person that needs to get in. It's not against the law to not have the button or person. There's a 5-pound weight limit on a door to make it ADA standard, but it's also just probably not best practice. If you're going to have a voting service center, I would hope that there would at least be that button to push so you can get into the polling center pretty easily. And if it's not on the ground floor, which sometimes in our more rural areas, some buildings just are older, and some of their election processes conducted on maybe a second or third floor. If that is the case, if you're out in a rural area, we really do want to hear your feedback, because that's where we do see some more issues built. Like I said, the buildings are a little older, and it's just more difficult to find more accessible buildings. So if you are out in the rural areas, just please, we appreciate the effort you're making out there, and make sure there's an elevator in the building if that is the case. And if there's not, there should be a person available to come and assist somebody at the lower level to help them make sure they can fill out their ballot and they have all the accessible equipment available to them. If you do go in and you're seeing a long line and you're standing in line, if you could observe whether or not there's seating available for people who might need to sit down. You aren't allowed to cut in front of people if you have a disability, but you will be allowed and should be given the accommodation to be able to sit in line and stand for long periods of time.
All right. Shoot ahead a little bit. So yes, going to check in. So this is kind of when the folks who are actually voting in person versus just dropping off their mail ballots. This is when, if you're just dropping off your mail ballot, you won't necessarily do this piece, because pretty much what you'll be doing is saying, here's my mail ballot, thank you very much. So from this point, there will be questions on the end to answer, but you will not do this section. So checking in, were you registering to vote in the state of Colorado for the first time? It's just helpful for us to know if you went through the whole registration process and what that was like. Question 20 is important. So at check-in, were you offered to vote on a paper ballot? Did someone just say, oh, you're here to vote, here you go, and hand you a paper ballot? Because they're actually supposed to ask you, because you have a variety of options for how you can vote. Were you offered to vote on a machine? Did they offer you a check-in card to fill out and sign? And also, going into question 21, were you asked to present identification, and what type of ID were you asked to present in order to vote? This is really important, as in Colorado, we have 16 different forms of identification that you can use to present in order to vote. And so it's important that the script that's being used at voter service and polling centers reflects that, and you don't have an election judge who is saying, okay, do you have a driver's license? They're not supposed to ask you that, because you don't have to have a driver's license. You can present a variety of different forms of identification. So question 21 and 20 both get into that. Then how long did the check-in process take, including wait time? We did see some long lines in 2016, especially with folks who voted in person on election day. So we're just making sure that we are monitoring wait times so that we could possibly address this in the future. Going on, and then if you experience any problems during the check-in process that are serious and would cause you to not cast a ballot, please call 1-866-R-VOTE immediately. As of today, which is October 15th, we are answering voter calls on the 866-R-VOTE hotline that are coming in from Coloradans. So you will be able to maybe even have the phone answered by me. Or one of our trained volunteers who can walk you through the process of, if you run into problems, what do you then do? So then we're going to go into voting, which is the next section. So this is after you're checked in and they take you back to, vote at a machine. So just take an estimate. What's the total number of voting machines available at the voter service and polling center? Do they have one that everyone is fighting over to use? Are there a ton? So just give us an estimate of that. Also, question 25 is very important. Were you able to vote privately? So are there people, is your screen facing outward? Could people possibly see their selections? And then 26, did you experience any problems while voting? Again, if there are any serious problems, please do call 866-R-VOTE and report those immediately. I'll turn it back over to Jennifer for the users of accessible voting machines.
Yes, and so this is a really important part of the process. We would like to get your opinion back on accessible voting machines. You could be asked by the election judge if you need the machine to a disability-related reason. You should not be asked if you need the machine because do you have a disability or what is your disability? Those would be inappropriate, possibly borderline illegal questions. So, but I think the judge could wonder if this is something you do for a disability-related reason. And just be honest if you do not have a disability and you're just curious about how the accessible machine works. I would just be honest and say, yes, no, I do not. If you don't have a disability, and I just wanted to see how the machine works. And if you do have a disability and you need it for that reason, obviously you are entitled to use the machine, and the judge should be able to assist you with that. So, was the machine available and ready for use? That's a very important question, and one that usually no, they're not ready for use, and sometimes people don't really know how to set them up. So that's something we're very concerned about. And I would like to hear, if that is happening so we can try to correct that problem. Not as good as Caroline. Were adjustable audio and visual features, sip and puff device outlet, and toggle devices available on the machine? So obviously, if you need these devices, you're very familiar with them and you would know what to look for. They're separate devices that plug into the machines, and they are a very key component to making sure these machines are accessible. That every polling center must have at least one accessible machine. I think because we've switched over to ballot marking devices, which look more like computer screens, most machines are accessible. I don't know that, I don't think you're just going to run into one accessible machine in a polling center. But if you encounter any issues like that, of course, put that on the survey so we can deal with that as well. Was an election judge knowledgeable about operating the accessible machine? Like I said, that's been a problem in the past. I believe we've had our new voting equipment now, or everyone should have had it by now for a year. So hopefully people are knowledgeable how to use them. But the thing about elections is they come around only a couple of times a year, so you forget how to use them. And so, but it's important that they know how, because it's, somebody might need it and you don't want to spend an hour in a voting center if you don't have to, waiting to get the machine up and running and figure out how to use it. And also what's important to know is are you able to use the machine independently as a person with a disability. That's very important because now that we have come so far with technology, our machines are extremely accommodating, I think. And I would like to know if there's any changes or adjustments that could be made, because it's important to make sure our Secretary of State is aware of that and that the makers of these machines are aware of that. So basically what this means is you vote with basically no assistance, if at all possible. So that would be good. That's a key issue as well in the disability community. Was there an adjustable table that can accommodate a person and a mobility device or someone who needs to sit down to vote available? Also, something that would make the voting service and polling center more accessible and up to par with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Did the election judge allow assistance for voters with disabilities? So voters with disabilities are legally entitled to choosing someone to come and assist them to vote. They can choose anybody they want to. It doesn't even have to be someone eligible to vote. Just anybody they trust to assist them, including the election judge. The only person or people that you're not allowed to assist or to have assist you would be your employer or a union representative, and that's because due to the potential influence they might have over you when you're casting a vote. Did the election judges attempt to predetermine your competency to vote? Another very big issue here, not only in Colorado but across the nation, competency. Fortunately, we live in one of 10 states that does not limit your ability to vote based on competency, which means whether if you've been determined to be incapacitated in some way, or if you have a guardian, you still have the right to vote. So know that going in, but also know that an election judge can't determine whether or not you should be able to vote based on like your ability to speak or read. And all of these things were part of our Voting Rights Act of 1965. They did away with literacy tests that were very commonly used down in the southern states. And now we have protections against that sort of thing. So if you are seeing anything like that happening in a polling center, please mark that on the survey and let us know about it. Did the voting machine allow you to independently verify your ballot before it was cast? So also another key component to our Help America Vote Act is that you're able to verify your ballot before you cast it. Due to the issues that we encountered back in the year 2000, there were some arguments over whether or not people voted the way they intended to vote, and was that vote counted correctly. It was a big Supreme Court decision, Al Gore versus George Bush, and so we came up with the Help America Vote Act, which now required this ability to independently verify your ballot, so we don't have that sort of confusion anymore, and our voting equipment should be up to speed. So it's newer and it's able to allow you to do that. Did you experience any problems while voting on the accessible machine? So that's pretty self-explanatory, just any problems. We'd like to hear about it. Now, is the path of travel in the voting area wide enough for a voter using a mobility device? This should include making turns. So if you notice narrow hallways or pathways that have obstacles or anything that might be a barrier to a person in a mobility device, or to a person who might have a visual impairment, anything like that, just sort of put yourself in that perspective. And if you are a person with a disability, please, we would like to hear from you personally to see if you did encounter any of these problems. Are all rugs and mats secure and have low pile? That basically is going to look like something that you can easily have a mobility device go over, like a wheelchair or scooter, or even somebody with a walker. You wouldn't want that person to possibly get caught up in the carpet, or somebody with crutches, like Caroline, who is now using crutches because she broke her ankle. So she might have to get out there and let us know.
Yeah, I will. I will be one of the people taking the survey
firsthand. And I think we're going back to Caroline now.
Yeah. So hopefully everyone will check yes for question 39, were you able to successfully vote today? Again, if you run into any problems that would prevent you from voting, call 1-866-OUR-VOTE so we can walk you through the process and see what's going on. Question 40, did you observe any electioneering within 100 feet of the VSPC? So this is important to know that, once you walk into that voter service and polling center, there should not be any signs hanging about different candidates and different ballot initiatives. I even heard that there was a group of people who had all gone in to vote that day with a T-shirt that had a certain candidate on it. And the election judge very quickly walked up to them and said, you'll need to go into the bathroom and turn your shirts inside out because that's considered to be electioneering. So that should be a safe space where no one is pressuring you to vote a certain way or for a certain ballot initiative or candidate. So that's very important to note. So that should not be going on. Question 41, equally important, I think. Did anyone attempt to intimidate or prevent you from voting at the voter service and polling center? So this isn't necessarily someone who comes up to you and says, hey, are you allowed to vote? Even though at the same time, no one should be asking you that question. Let's make that very, very clear. But that could not be so dramatic as that example. It can also be someone who is out in the parking lot with, standing outside of their car or truck holding a gun and looking menacing. I mean, that would be considered well. So I think a safe rule of thumb is if it makes you feel intimidated, give the hotline, the 866-OUR-VOTE hotline, a call so we can kind of walk you through that process and see what we need to do about that.
And remember, I think you were here. We had a situation where there were a lot of parked police cars in front of the voting service and polling center, and that was an issue we took very seriously, and it was reported to us. So something like that could be intimidating.
Yes, definitely. And then we just are curious to know what type of what type of space was used to house the VSPC. So if it's inside of a public building, so a lot of voter service centers will be inside of the county clerk's office, inside of the elections division, in a courthouse, etc. Some will be in private buildings, especially for smaller communities. You'll have a county store that's used as a ballot drop box, for example. And then we're especially interested to know if they're in churches, just because that introduces an element of religion and separation of church and state. So we want to be very mindful of that as well. And then lastly, in question 44, any final comments? This is where you would put anything else that like, hey, this seems kind of weird to me. This seemed really great to me. Any kind of comments or notes that you want us to read, that's the place to put it. So I think that is it. When you are inputting your survey results using the SurveyMonkey link, which you will be sent, there will just be a button at the end that says submit. Just make sure that you click submit because your survey won't be recorded unless you click that button. So just make sure that you get to the end and click submit, even if you are just dropping off your ballot at a voter service and polling center and may not necessarily do the entire survey. So with that, I again thank you for serving as a secret shopper for voter service and polling centers in Colorado. This work is really important, not just for this election, but we'll take this information that we're getting from you about lines, about types of identification that might have been asked, accessibility, the proximity to residences, to voter service and polling centers, and whether or not they're accessible by public transit. We're going to take this information and it will help us work with our Secretary of State and county clerks for the next year to 2 years. So thank you so much. Next steps, I will be, or actually our fabulous intern Rich will be emailing you.
Oh.
Yeah, we have a great intern now.
Interns are good.
Interns are great. He will be emailing everyone who signed up a hard copy of the survey, so what you're seeing right now, the PDF, a link to the survey, which is where you'll actually put in the information after you complete the survey, which is SurveyMonkey, the site that we're doing that through. And then I'll also send you a link to this video, which will be on YouTube. So you have all of that. Feel free to reach out to him if you have any questions, especially if you have any hard to answer voting questions. We are here. We're pretty much have our election protection hats on from now through November 6th. So if anything comes up, please do reach out. And I don't know if there's to add.
No, I mean, just like she said, reach out. I'm part of election protection, but also as the PNA, the Protection Advocacy for Colorado, if you're experiencing discrimination based on your disability, anything like that, you would want to call our organization. It's easy to find our information online. It's disabilitylawco.org, or you can call 303-300 and ask for me, Jennifer Levin, because I do specifically work in the vote program. So I would handle any situation that would come up that would look like that.
Great. And yeah, lastly, just going back and plugging Just Vote Colorado, which is justvotecolorado.org. This website is available in English and Spanish. It is a one-stop shop for all things elections and voting in Colorado. So if you have a question, if you want to learn more about your voting rights, if you want to view important upcoming dates and deadlines, just to briefly go over those again. So today, Monday, October 15th, mail ballots will be mailed to all registered voters in Colorado. October 22nd, which is also a Monday, it's the first day that voter service and polling centers will open. So that's the first opportunity that you would have to go in and complete the survey. And then, very important date, Tuesday, November 6th. So that is Election Day 2018. You should be in line no later than 7 p.m. Hopefully a little before 7 p.m. On Election Day. That is the deadline for both being in line or having submitted your mail ballot. So just an important note that postmarks do not count if you are sending back your ballot. So everything has to be pretty much done by 7 p.m. on Election Day, Tuesday, November 6th. So again, reach out to us with any questions, and thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.